We'll move to Kate McKenna, CBC News.
Morning, Minister. I'm wondering if you've decided who you're going to be supporting in the Liberal leadership, and if so, why you chose that person.
I have not yet decided how I will get involved. I'm going to get involved one way or the other at some point. I did say at the outset when the race was just starting, I know it's a short race, but I said it's a short race, yes, but it doesn't need to be short on ideas, and I was looking forward to the ideas that different candidates were putting forward. I guess where I'm at right now is I recognize difficult times in Liberal politics across the country and in different places, but I actually have been encouraged by the number of serious people who have stepped up, and obviously people will have heard of Mark Carney. He's a serious person who's done a lot in his life, a lot of good in his life, and it's a good thing that he's been attracted to our politics even at a really difficult time. Chrystia Freeland, I valued her as a colleague and continue to value her as a colleague in the 416 caucus, and she's incredibly smart and has a lot to contribute. Karina Gould comes at it from I think the same generational lens that I do in many ways, and I hope she speaks to housing and childcare when she really gets going on ideas. I know I have every expectation that she will. I've been interested. Frank Bayless was a friend. I sat on committee with him. No one talks about him when different candidates get mentioned, but this is a guy who built $1 billion company. This is a guy who has financed award-winning films that address the exploitation of migrant workers. This is someone who funded efforts to fight Bill 21 in Quebec. He's done a lot of serious things. I sometimes think of the Dos Equis commercial of like the most interesting man in the world, and I mean no one knows about him, but when they do, I think they'll find that he's kind of interesting. So that's all to say. The candidates who are going to be the most serious in the competition, they're great. But even people who are going to be less competitive in the end, I think they're strong candidates in their own right, and I just think the field itself is shaping up to be a good and serious one.
In the last 24 hours, we've seen some high-profile endorsements from Mark Carney from cabinet ministers. These, of course, are people who served with Chrystia Freeland. I'm wondering why you think that people who served with Chrystia Freeland would obviously know her personally, would then choose Mark Carney over her.
I think there are two ways to think about that. I mean, sometimes people have their own personal dynamics and, get along with someone in one particular way or don't. I mean, you'll also see cabinet ministers that endorse Chrystia too, and you see a lot of my 416 colleagues that are doing the same. So people have loyalties and relationships, and that's a big part of our politics, as it should be. I think the second part of it is that people are grappling with is what's our best foot forward? And what's our best foot forward in an election where you've got Pierre Poilievre, and I know the question is more about the sort of internal dynamics of the race, but here I'm talking about housing. You have a leader of the Conservative Party right now who, when asked about social housing investments, he said government's got to get out of the way entirely. This is someone who has compared co-op housing. Like I was born in co-op housing, and this guy's comparing it to Soviet-style housing, completely demeaning the very idea of community and co-op housing that in many ways has delivered affordability throughout our country's history. We used to have a bipartisan consensus on this, and this is a guy who wants to tear common sense cuts, basically. Like I lived through Mike Harris, and my parents were both teachers, and this is Mike Harris all over again. And so I really worry about that, and I think a lot of us as Liberals are grappling with who's the best foot forward to make sure we can protect our progress and build on the progress and really push aside the Reform Party politics that has taken that Conservative Party in a really negative direction.
People within your cabinet think that Mark Carney's the person who's going to be most likely to win?
Some, I mean, and some feel differently. I mean, it's what from what I've seen, it's been pretty mixed so far in terms of cabinet endorsements and Liberal endorsements. But look, they both offer a really serious contribution. I mean, think of Mark Carney. I think his performance on the Daily Show was good. But apart from that, this is someone who we are in a moment of crisis right now, and this is someone who helped Canada navigate through the Great Recession. You've got, and the financial crisis. You've got, he's someone who helped Britain navigate through the difficult and challenging political circumstances of Brexit. And, you contrast that with Pierre Poilievre, who in the COVID crisis, when asked about government supports, he said they were big fat government programs and we should just cut red tape and cut taxes. How many small businesses would have gone bankrupt? How many people would have been out of employment and out of supports if that person had been Prime Minister in a crisis? So I do think people are looking for leadership, and they're looking for who's going to deliver the real leadership we need. When you look across the aisle and you see sort of cartoon slogans and snippy attacks, and we need better than that.
And just as a quick follow on the leadership race, I think it's a fair characterization that you approach politics very differently than many of your MP colleagues. And so as Canadians have, I think, clearly expressed a desire for change coming up in the next election, whether it be one way or the other, I'm curious whether you consider it a run for the Liberal leadership.
Honestly, I was asked this by more constituents than media, but genuinely, no. I mean, I think this is the most important way to make a difference. I already experienced enough mental whiplash where I was thinking I was going to do something different for a period of time, and I'm back in this trying to make the biggest difference that I can on housing, and an example's today. And even though this is in some ways modest progress in comparison to the progress we need to address homelessness, this is important progress nonetheless, and this is the most important way to make a difference with the time that I've got right now. I love the idea of being able to add ideas to the conversation. I think, where I get involved in any campaign, I will get involved in a way that I think I'm going to make it'll be an opportunity to influence ideas in that way too. And I just haven't figured out exactly what that looks like yet.